that referee's call on the delay of play and Foley not kicking the ball out. From your perspective, was it the right call?
I don't think it was the right call, but I can see both sides. Like I get what the referee was saying in regards to, he gave him numerous warnings, and if you actually listen to the audio, I think he does a pretty good job to be clear.
Your player, I switch on the time and you play immediately. Okay. And he wait. So that's a scrum for the All Blacks.
I think part of that responsibility goes to Bernard in terms of being more aware. But I just think that we've never seen that rule implemented before. We've never seen it. When South Africa takes forever to kick the ball out and walks to lineouts, we've never seen it with Northern Hemisphere teams tend to take a long time in that similar process. And if that's the case, if that's what it's going to be, then they have to do it every single time. And more specifically, that particular ref has to be able to do. He has to do that every single time, because it just doesn't. It's not a good look if it's just a one-off thing like that. If that makes sense.
Look, I think it was pretty courageous to make that call. Like, so often we see in the last moments of Test matches, and especially big games, they almost are too scared to rule anything. Like, I even think the penalty, like that was a big penalty that Foketi got for Dane Cole's holding on, and he just blew it straight away. Sometimes you see they get a little bit of an extra cleaner and they let it go because they want it to play out. And then it was Foketi's reaction behind that made me think, man, he must have been told so many times. And I think it's also, it's where you can, we have better physical athletes on the field, but sometimes, knowing the laws and being a student of the game, and I think TJ Perenara is one that does it really well. He challenges the ref with facts, and that's a point of difference at that level. And had they known that was the consequence of a scrum, because you heard Dave Rennie say, well, he didn't know it was going to be a scrum, but it's not really the ref's responsibility to point that out. He made it clear, you've got to play, you've got to kick it, and he didn't. And as he said to Nick White with the audio, is if you think I'm not going to rule a penalty at the end of the game, now you know. And I think I do agree with you, Will, though he has to be consistent moving forward now, because it can't be a one-off. But also I do think players' behaviours will change when he's reffing now. I think they will move a lot faster. And I think he'll be consistent in his process of giving a warning, and then you'll know, because everyone knows now.
I really agree. I think it was a really courageous decision to make, certainly. And I think if you couple that with the fact that he gave a lot of warning, there was actually very clear communication around, I'm going to turn the time back on now, I want you to play, we're not wasting time here. And I heard Dave Rennie say that the referee didn't have a feel for the occasion or for the game, but I actually think the opposite. I think the fact that he was courageous enough to make that decision I think it's almost like he has a better feel for the game, because he understands what Australia's trying to do. He understands that we're trying to slow the game down and win it by wasting time. So it's like, well, I'm not going to let you do that. And so I definitely agree that it was a courageous decision. I think, and I'm all for giving referees discretion. I think that too often the TMO's involved for one. So we've got to be able to back the referees to actually referee the game, and you've got to give them that discretion to be able to make rulings. But it just comes back on them to now be consistent. Each time they obviously go out and they do their job and perform.
That's a good point. The first half, it went for 58 minutes. 58 minutes the first half. That's a long first half. Bryn, what's your thoughts?
I'd rather the ref not have an influence on the game to be able to be the headlines of the newspaper to give his decision. So for me, I actually thought the Australians were hard done by. I do know why Bernard Foley was doing it. He was trying to milk time and probably bluffed and got the bluff wrong, unfortunately. But for me, I just think having the game finished like that, where the Aussies had done so hard to make a really good comeback, considering they were down a couple of tries. I thought they were really unlucky, and the All Blacks probably got away with one, scoring one to win it with Geordie Barrett in the final minutes.
I don't think he should be shot for doing his job, though. Like, he's there to perform a role just like players are, and if he lets it go and he feels uncomfortable about it, then he's not fulfilling what he's there to do. Personally, as I say, I'm more frustrated when things aren't called.
No one thinks about time wasting in minute one. That's the hard part when we talk about consistency, right? We always want consistent calls, but if you're not thinking about something, it's not going to be consistent. And the reason I bring that up is that Law 9.7 says a player must not waste time. That is all it says. It doesn't say how long time wasting is. So unless you say that and have that written in the rules, how is a ref supposed to make that consistent throughout a game? They've just got to write into the rules. You got 30 seconds to kick this ball to touch. That's it. Otherwise, free kick.
The more I think about it now, you actually look at how he did it. He actually gave pretty clear communication. He turned time off, told him, turn time back on and say, we're not here to waste time. So, I tend to agree that, you can't shoot him for doing his job. Whether, I wouldn't have made that decision in that particular instant. And being an Aussie, I wish he didn't. Don't get me wrong. We could be playing for the Bledisloe for the first time in 20-odd years this weekend. But, I almost feel even more positive towards the fact that he made the decision now that we're having this conversation.
We're just working this through. This is like a counselling session.
Therapy. This is therapy.
Bryn's still blowing up.
I just think it's a penalty and it's an infringement and that kind of, because you tend to probably think that the calls aren't getting called in penalties whether it's holding on or off his feet that's been refereed through the whole game and they get scared to put the whistle in their pocket for the last couple of minutes or 5 minutes. But for me, for a decision where it wasn't really a penalty, it was just more so an out of the blue kind of penalty that hasn't been done before, scrum, sorry. I just think Australia were really hard done by.
I tell you what, guys, just from another perspective, as someone who's played against the All Blacks for a long period of time, the moment that they got that scrum, my heart sank. Yeah. I just thought, here we go. Here we go. I just had this feeling something's going to happen where they're going to score, and it just eventuated that way. And
do you think that's how the Aussie team felt, though, a little bit? Because they were so frustrated by it. It's almost like they knew they were going to score from that position rather than sort of just switching in, right, we need to nail the scrum, we've got a defensive set. Do you know that the emotion and the heightened emotion probably didn't help them execute in that last minute to stop a try happening?
I mean, the best way to answer that is if I think about All Black teams that I've played against and I look at this particular team, which, is very similar to all those other teams, they seem to be so very process-driven so that no moment is too big or too small for them. And so as opposition, whenever you're facing them, you always know that regardless of what's happening, they're going to be able to perform their roles. And so maybe it was that and then the emotion, getting too caught up in what had just happened and not being switched on to what they were supposed to do. Because it's one of those things where you could see when we got the penalty, it was almost like we've won the game. And then to go from that to then having a 5-metre scrum, that's obviously going to play with your mindset a little bit as well. But for me, my heart sank because, to me, I know that I don't think there's any other team in the world of sport that's so good at being so process focused that you almost just trust that they're going to score, be able to get points somehow.